challenged myself to 100 days of prep and data challenges, started some YouTube videos, started a blog. And so, part of the goal of this is we know that there's a large audience of Tableau Prep users, people who want to really know how to get the most Tableau Prep. And so, yeah, that's why we're here. I love Tableau Prep, advocate for it a lot. And I think as it's growing, there's more and more capabilities of it. And so we just wanted to really share that with an audience and an audience that is looking or is using it. That's the ETL tool of choice, or wants to learn how to use it. And so that's why we decided to put this together.
Thank you, Jared. Just to start with it, thanks a lot for registering for this whole program over here. We hope you're able to go ahead and learn something new out of it and become a data rockstar, as I said that. So I will just go ahead and talk in brief in terms of what you will expect in this 6 weeks of program, what are some of the prerequisites, and at the end, I will hand it over to Jared just to give you a quick demo of Tableau Prep Builder. So just to go ahead and give you an overview of this particular program, it's a 6 weeks of program in which we have session, hands-on challenge, quiz, a hackathon for you, just to help you understand how you can go ahead and become a data rockstar in Tableau Prep. The total time commitment is of around 7.5 hours, in which we are just talking about the sessions, hands-on session, quiz, and the data doctor sessions, which we'll go ahead and do it live. And also all the sessions will be recorded and it will be published to the VizConnect YouTube channel. And also what we have done just to create a small community on Tableau Prep, we have created a LinkedIn group on Tableau Prep so that you can go ahead, join, network with others, ask your questions, learn some best practices, share resources, and we can go ahead and help everyone learn the power of Tableau Prep over here. Just to talk about the prerequisite, I think we have already shared that in the registration. You should have a Tableau Creator license, Tableau Prep Builder installed in your machine, Tableau Desktop installed in your machine for the hackathon. If you have a Tableau Public profile, that's optional. If you have e-learning, that is also optional. We'll go ahead and post out some of the resources on LinkedIn, how you can go ahead and utilize Tableau e-learning to learn more about Tableau Prep. This is the overall schedule for the 6 weeks of program. Let me just go ahead and just break it week by week to help you understand what is in there for you and how you can go ahead and attend these sessions. So today is 11th of July, and we are going ahead and starting the introduction to the program and just giving you a quick introduction of Tableau Prep Builder. One thing you will notice, all the sessions either are there on Monday, Friday and Wednesday, and that's the reason we have done in purpose so that you are able to go ahead and wind up your work and go ahead and attend these sessions, or you can go ahead and start early if you're joining us from EST time zone. The other thing what we have done, we've also given you a gap over here so that you can go ahead and do some of the quizzes, exercises, so that you have a lot of time to work on it. So on Monday, we will go ahead and do an introduction, give you a feedback about what is required, what is expected, so that you're all charged up for the sessions. On Friday, we will have a session in which Jared will talk about aggregation and data densification. It will be a 60-minute session in which Jared will go ahead and cover some of the foundation principles on aggregation and data densification, which will help you out in terms of understanding Tableau Prep. Then next week on Wednesday, we will go ahead and meet at the same time, which is 7 p.m. IST or 9:30 a.m. EST, and I think it's around 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon for the people joining from London. So the hands-on session, we will ask you to go ahead and download some of the data sources, and together we will solve those particular challenges in the hands-on session over here. Then in the same week, we will also go ahead and send you a Tableau Prep quiz, just a quick quiz just to help you understand what you have learned the last 2 weeks and what has been the impact. And that is something we'll go ahead and talk about in the hands-on session. Then in the following week, we will go ahead and kick off with a hackathon, in which what we will do, we will go ahead and share a data set with you. And the expectation is you will go ahead and use Tableau Prep, clean the data set, or go ahead and make it more structured. And then you will use Tableau Prep and create some insights and publish it to the Tableau Public profile. And if you don't have a Tableau Public profile, we'll go ahead and talk about that. During those particular weeks over here, we will also do data doctor sessions. So if you have any query in Tableau Prep, you're not able to understand something, we'll have Jared. I will also be there. We'll have some more members from Tableau just to help you understand with the queries and issues you have over there. Then in the week over here, you will still go ahead and work on your hackathon. We'll do another data doctor session just to give you all the help. Then we'll ask you to publish your Viz to Tableau Public so that you are able to go ahead and do end-to-end from data cleaning, data preparation, and from going ahead and publishing your analysis to Tableau Public. Then we'll go ahead, take around 2 weeks just to evaluate what you have submitted. And based on that, on 19th of August, we'll go ahead and do a closing ceremony, give shout outs to you so that you're able to go ahead and understand what has been the impact of the whole program. You don't have to take screenshots. All the details will be sent across to you on your email. I will also post these details to the LinkedIn group I was talking about so that you are all updated. So let me just talk about all the live sessions over here. As I said that, all the sessions which are live will be hosted on 7 p.m. IST or 9:30 a.m. EST or 2:30 p.m. London time. These are the sessions and the time will not change. It will be same throughout. Today, we'll go ahead and talk about the program overview. We'll go ahead and give you a quick introduction to Tableau Prep, and then we'll talk about what's next for you in terms of the action item. As I also said that this Friday, which is on 15th, we'll also go ahead and do a session on data densification. And that is something which will help you when you go ahead and use Tableau Prep. After that, in the hands-on session, which is on, I think I have to change the date. I will go ahead and do that, which is on, I think, 18th. And in that, you have to go ahead and download some of the data sets. We'll go ahead and share it across with you. After that, from 25th July, we'll go ahead and kick off the hackathon. In the session, we'll talk about the data set and the challenge. So that is something which will be stay tuned for you. So let me just jump back to the topic, right? Why was Tableau Prep created? What was the need to go ahead and create a different product, right? Tableau Desktop was able to help us go ahead and visualize the data. But one thing which we realized that, and this is something which has been a motto, we help people see and understand data. And what happened when we went ahead and talked to our customers, and this is one of the study which Harvard also did, 80% of the analysts were spending time just on cleaning and discovering the data. Or there were some scenarios, they were waiting for IT to go ahead and get the data and help them get started with it, right? And that was one reason we went to go ahead and empower these users who are dealing with scenarios like these in which they have multiple Excels, they have data set which they will not be able to transform and they have to depend on some other person just to go ahead and get this data transformed over here. Or there were some scenarios in which I will take an example of myself as a business user. I was not sure what was going on over here. So just to go ahead and help you in terms of give a better visibility of data and empower you in terms of how you can get a visibility in what exactly your data is, flexibility in terms of ability to interact and test out different options, automation in terms of going ahead and automating the whole flow, and auditability in terms of going ahead, documenting and tracking the transformation. That was some of the reasons we went ahead and created this tool called Tableau Prep. So Jared will talk more about it, but just to go ahead and what you can do in Tableau Prep, you can ingest the data, you can shape the data, and you can write back the data to some of the database over here. Also, we'll go ahead and talk about Tableau Prep Conductor also, which is a part of data management in Tableau. Using Tableau Prep Conductor, you can go ahead and automate your flows, you can manage it, and you can optimize over here. So without further ado, I will now hand it over to Jared to go ahead and give a quick demo of Tableau Prep Builder. Jared, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So let me share my screen real quick. And all right, we can see the Tableau Prep screen.
Yes, do you want to zoom in a little?
So my screen is fairly large, kind of hard to zoom in. I can zoom in on calculations, but not the actual display. I do have my little magnifier here, so I'll use this to assist any kind of hard to see areas. So yeah, let's talk about Tableau Prep, but also before we step into it, kind of expanding on, why was Tableau Prep created? Uh, now that I've been using it a lot, and sometimes I've had some of the questions myself, but when you're in a data engineering mindset and you're using this tool as a data engineer, it definitely helps. It helps your workflows. You're doing things with this drag and drop, right? You're not having to spend time coding things. But then you start asking questions like, why can't it do this? And why isn't it able to do this? And I've sort of sat with this for a while. And the realization I've come to is that the mission of Tableau Desktop or Tableau, right, help people see and understand data. And then the mission of Tableau Desktop is to put the data in the hands of everyone, right? And so if you think about this mission in terms of Tableau Prep is extending that mission. It's supposed to provide self-service data preparation. And so if with desktop we're putting data in the hands of everybody, with Tableau Prep we're putting this data preparation in the hands of everybody. And so there are some things that you would do as a data engineer that your everyday analyst would not do. And I think this is the balance that Tableau is trying to find. How do we ensure that this tool is effective, that it can handle high workloads, that it can do all of these processes, but that it still remains a self-service data preparation tool and doesn't become uh, too complicated where it starts being catered only to that data engineering crowd that has that heavier understanding and mindset. Um, so just kind of keep that in mind as you learn more about the tool and as you start, wondering why it functions a certain way. That now that I have that understanding, it definitely helps me see why it's built the way it is and why it functions the way it does. And so I think that it does amazing things. But yeah, like I said, it's not meant to be this really complicated tool. That's the whole purpose of it. It's meant to be simple and simplify that process so that way more people can access that process and more people are able to clean their data. So Tableau Prep. If you are new to it or if you've been using it for a while and are just hoping to learn more about it, I'm going to go in detail on everything to make sure that I can cater to both sides of this. So when you open it up, this is the first thing that you see. And it's similar to desktop in that you've got your most recent projects up here. You've got some sample projects. So you got most recent up here, got sample projects down here. You've got a bar over here that will, it's got some training materials, it's got some blogs and some resources. If there's any new update, that would be down here in the corner. And then you can either open a flow or connect to data. And when you connect to data, the pane over here is pretty similar to what you would see in desktop. It's formatted the same. And so it's kind of nice, especially if you're jumping into both tools. You don't have to refamiliarize yourself with kind of how to connect to data. That initial step, how do I bring in my data, looks and feels pretty similar in both tools. So you've got the same options, right? You can connect to Tableau server, you can connect to different files, and then you can connect to all kinds of cloud databases and cloud storage solutions. Throughout this course, we'll probably mostly be connecting to Excel files and text files. We may at some point demo what that looks like connecting to Tableau server, connecting to published data sources, because another big benefit of using Tableau Prep would be that ability. You've got certain published data sources and you can connect to those and modify those or combine them, clean them in different ways. That was actually the reason that, or the main reason why I picked up Tableau Prep again was because at the time, the organization I was in, the flow, the process of getting data in my hands for me to work with it, it came to me in the form of a published data source on Tableau. And so if I needed any changes, any other additional information, anything like that, I would have to put in a request to my data engineering team. They'd have to put in a ticket, go through a whole process, build it out, and then republish the data source. So Tableau Prep allowed me to do all of that, connect to my different published data sources, and do what I was trying to do, because what I was trying to do wasn't complicated. I just didn't have access to the full backend to be able to do it myself. So one thing that is helpful and one thing that I like to use a lot is the sample superstore flow that comes as a part of every download of Tableau Prep. And I like to use this because it does a really good job of showcasing what Tableau Prep can do in a really simplified flow. And so when you connect to a data source over here in the right-hand side or the left-hand side, it'll pop up a list of your connections. So as you pull in more connections, they'll all be over here, and it will even sort of highlight over here the file type. So over here you can see we've got Microsoft Excel, we've got text files. So it will kind of quickly call out what am I connected to, and what's the file type of it. The icons, there's some of the icons you'll see also in Tableau Desktop, which is also nice to help with that transition between the two tools. So the two that you'll see immediately are the union here. So the union symbol and then the join symbol. Both of these you'll see in Tableau Desktop if you're doing any unions or joins within the data pane of Tableau Desktop. And so they keep the symbology there similar and consistent. The new icons that we'll see are going to be the input step and the clean step. So input is a circle. Clean steps are just a long rounded rectangle or just a rounded bar. There's pivot steps here. And so depending on if you're pivoting rows to columns or columns to rows, the arrow you'll see down here. So if you're pivoting columns to rows, you see those two little column headers, the arrow goes into rows. But if you're doing it the other way, then the little arrow goes the other way. You've got the symbol here for aggregation. So any aggregations would happen in this step. And there's also a few more symbols. If I come up here to add a new step, you can see there's some more symbols here. So there's the option to add scripts, so like Python or R. There is the new rows step, which looks like it's basically 3 rows with one that has a little plus symbol in there. And we'll go over all of that too. So that's just to familiarize yourself with what are each of these symbols. And the more you work with it, the nice thing about it is it makes it really clean and simple at a glance. What is all here, right? With Tableau, Tableau Cloud being a destination for you to share flows, publish them, automate them, same as with dashboards. One of the nice things, use cases, is that it makes your data engineering process, your ETL process, all of that cleansing, it makes that visible to to a wider audience. If you've got users that are using dashboards and they're asking, how did we get to this number, or how did we get this series of columns? How did we get to this, right? Like they know what the raw data looks like, and they just have questions on how did it get to this state. And so what this does is it can help increase that trust in the process, because you can add more documentation here and really make it thorough and clear what is happening to the data as it is ingested and as it gets on its way to getting published. So that's something to keep in mind as well as you start building out your flows. You know, how thorough you get with your documentation, how many steps you break it up into. There's definitely different styles and preferences for this, and depending on how widely it's used in your organization, you might even have like a style guide for this, a business-wide, here's how we do it for these things. But just keep in mind when building these out. One of the main things is if I had to hand this over to somebody, or if I left the company that I'm at, would they be able to look at this flow, understand what's happening, why it's happening, and continue to maintain it or improve it? So documentation and the amount of description that you're able to add really plays well into all of that. So let's talk about some of the different things that we can do in each of these steps. And again, I'm trying to be to find a balance here between being as thorough as possible and also catering to some users that have been using this more. So let's talk about the input step. Sorry. So input step here, right? So here, and actually let me do it this way. If I drag in orders south, so over here, I've got orders south, and I'm going to drag that onto, or I'm going to drag the table here onto my canvas. So this white area here is my canvas. And here, let me move this here. There we go. Is that better for here up to 150? Is that? I'll leave it there. If I need to zoom it in more, let me know. All right. So we've got the orders south table here that I pulled in. Now, in this particular file, there's multiple tables that create the orders south. So if I come in here, this is what the input step allows you to do. So you've got settings, you can pull in multiple files if you need to, and then you can set how much of the data are we sampling, or you can turn off data sampling off, or you can turn it off altogether. So let's talk about each of those things. So for settings, because we're connected to a CSV, this has the option for me to browse my file directory. And then it also lets me set, because it is a CSV, how are the columns being delimited? What is the delimiter that we're using here? So in this case, we're using a comma. If we can set any text qualifiers if there were columns that were, or headers that were enclosed in quotes or single quotes, double quotes. We can set the character format here, and then the locale. One thing that you'll also see here is the incremental refresh down here. So if we were going to create a prep flow that when we run it, it's not doing a full refresh of the data, it's just adding new rows. We enable that here, and then we set that up as part of our output once we get down to the output. But in order to do that, it has to be enabled here at the input step. So in the settings tab, we can set where is our file, how is it being delimited if it's a text file, and then any qualifiers and things like that. So real basic in the settings. What you'll also see over here on the right side is the like a preview, right? So it gives you a preview of here's the name of the table, here's the name of the table, here's how many fields we have. If we wanted to throw in any filters, we could do that right here. It would pop up a little calculation window. I'll show that in a minute. And then it shows all of these different fields. So it shows us the fields names, what is the data type of those fields. So we can see some are numbers, some are string, some are date time, And these, again, these type symbols are going to be consistent with what you see in desktop. And so again, it makes that transfer between the two tools easy. And as you're learning, you're not having to learn two different sets of things. And also changing a type is the same in both. So if I wanted to change this real quick to a different type, I can click the little box and it'll give me a little drop down. And so here I can decide if I wanted to, I could change these to a different type right here in the input step. What if these two columns here, field name and original field name, this is because typically if you're connecting to like a SQL server or even a Snowflake table, something like that, a lot of the time the column names are like instead of it being order date, it would be order underscore date or ship underscore date. And so what Tableau Prep does when you connect to it is it usually tries to go in and kind of make those clean up those column names, right? So it'll do some capitalized first letters, and it'll remove that underscore, and just make it the column names appear cleaner. And so if it did do that, if it detected any columns that it needed to rename as it pulled in the data, then that original name shows up here. So like if this was originally called order underscore date and it renamed it as it pulled it into order date, that would show up here. So this one would still have the underscore. And you would also see here in the changes tab, you would see all of those renames that happened. And again, here as well, here in this changes column, if there was any sort of change applied, there's little icons that represent each of the changes. And so you would see that here, just it gives you like a real quick at a glance, there was a change in this column. The last thing it shows you is a preview of some of the values that you can expect to see in this column. So again, right when you pull in the data, you've got a very quick, okay, here are the fields, here's some of the values that I expect to see, here are some of the changes that were made. And so with Tableau Desktop being how you visualize data and really absorb the information that data is telling you, Prep provides the visual, it utilizes the same aspects of data visualization. It's providing a visual way to get you this information quicker. I need to know what changes are applied, and so little icons here make that much quicker for me to see. I want to know if any of these fields were renamed. This makes it quicker for me to see. And it also highlights, if I'm familiar with my data tables and I know how many fields I'm supposed to get, I'm able to quickly see if this had the wrong number of fields. I already know to go do troubleshooting before I even start my cleansing process. So, really paying attention to the input step or these preview steps in general can save you a lot of time. And if you're familiar with that data, you can troubleshoot right here at the start. With Excel files, text files, we've got the option here for multiple files. And so what this will do is it's got two options. I've got single table and I've got wildcard union. So single table and wildcard union. So what this means is if I'm only connecting to my one table, that's fine. But if I've got, let's say I've got a folder, like a shared drive, a shared folder, and every month or every year, reports are dropped into that folder. And so, like in this case, the example here for the South region is the data that is gathered for orders in the South region is gathered once a year and then placed in a folder at the end of each year. So every year has its own table within that folder. Now those tables are structured the same and they happen to be named the same. And so what I would do in Tableau Desktop typically is I would have to go find these, kind of drag them into the union. If I was doing, unions in SQL, then I would have to call that out, explicitly hard code those in. And so what this makes it really easy to click wildcard union, and then it will allow me to search in my file directory. I've got this weird name here because this is actually a temp file, but this basically is saying I want to search in this folder in my file directory, I could check this box here to include subfolders if I wanted to. I don't need to do that, but if I was really just kind of interested in a high level folder and I wanted to pull in everything or search everything, including in all of the subfolders, this allows you to really easily do that. And then you can also choose to include or exclude. So maybe in my case right now, as you can see down here in the corner, I've got 4 CSVs for each year, one for each year that I'm trying to union. But what if I had a file location where it's the same thing? I've got files in here for each year. They're all kind of formatted the same. But maybe I want everything in that folder, like everything that's going to be added. There's an automated process that it's all going to be structured the same. And I want everything that's in that folder now and in the future. But there's a couple of files in there that I really don't want. They need to be in that file for maybe for like audit purposes or just for historical purposes, but I don't want them in my flow. So in that case, I could switch this option to exclude and say, I don't want these files. I only want everything else. I want everything in this file location except for these files. So that allows you some nice options to really quickly pull in that data, quickly union it, and kind of get around any caveats there. You've also got the ability here to type in file names. So if, for example, here, I could say maybe there's other file types in there. There's Excel files, there's other files in there, and I just want everything that's a CSV file. So I could say star.csv and apply that, and it would pull in every file in that location that's a CSV. Or maybe I want everything that has orders in the titles, and so I say orders dot right, or orders star, and so it's going to pull in everything that starts with orders regardless of what comes after that word. So there's a couple of different ways that you can utilize that to ensure you're really getting the files you want. Other than that, like if I say search in this file, include files, and leave this blank, then it's just going to pull in everything in that file location. So again, keeping it simple, you can either make these selections work for your file structure, or you can structure your storage locations based on how it's going to pull in here. Just depends on how widely you're using prep or so what the processes for those are, and how much how much automation is already there versus how much are you building out currently. In Tableau, or in Prep 2022.2 just released, there are some extended features of the wildcard union. I didn't download it yet. I'll make sure to download it before the next session just to kind of quickly touch on those new features. But really, if you're just stepping into Tableau Prep, this is kind of what it's been like for a while. And so this is a good way to familiarize yourself with it. The last thing in the input step, the data sample. Data sampling tricks a lot of people, and it tricks me a lot too, even though I use it all the time. But when you pull in a data or an input step, automatically Tableau Prep is going to sample that data. So it's going to pull in it the way that it works based on which sampling method you've got selected down here. So you can see there's quick select and then there's random sample. So with quick select, you can see it's just it kind of based on the size of the file, it's going to return a sampled number of rows, and it's not really concerned with the structure of that of those rows. It's just going to pull in some random rows. If you do the random sample, it's going to basically take a look at the distribution of data, the distribution of the rows, its values, and try to pull you a sample that is closer in structure to the structure of the entire data set. But as you can see, it does kind of impact the performance of that sample. You can also basically just say, I don't want a sample. I want to just use all data here. Or I want a fixed number of rows. So this would be similar to like in SQL saying top 100 rows or top 1,000 rows, or in like MySQL saying limit 100. So you can do that as well. You can say, I just want a specific number of rows as long as it's less than or equal to 1,000,000 rows. If you try to do more than 1,000,000 rows as a fixed number, it's not going to let you. In that case, you just have to do default sample amount. So the reason why this tricks people though is because you're going through your flow, you're building it out, kind of verifying calculations and values as you go along, and then you get to a step where you've maybe done a join or done a calculation, and you're like, well, I'm not sure if this is right, and I want to validate this against my data set. And so maybe what you do is you come here and there's this option here that says preview in desktop. And so maybe you pull up the data real quick in desktop to validate it, and you're like, wait a minute, the number of like the values here are all off. I'm missing regions, I'm missing statuses, like I'm missing all kinds of data. And so you spend all this time trying to figure out what happened in my flow. If you're going to use prep to do any type of validation, you have to turn all of your sampling off. And so if you've got 5 inputs, you have to turn off sampling in all 5 of those inputs. It's going to take longer for it to load and process all of the changes that you've done, but that's the only way to validate inside of prep. If you run the flow, if you've built it all out and you've got sampling turned on, but you run your output and export the data, then you can do validation. And so you could export the data, do some validation, go back into your flow, make some changes, export it again, do some validation. So those are the 2 options. You either export the data or run your output and then validate, or you turn off sampling and validate inside your flow. So if you're ever looking inside of prep and numbers aren't looking right, make sure that your data sampling is turned off if that's how you're trying to use it. Yeah, so input step. It's a lot of information, I know, for one step. But the other key here with the input step is just in general with your data preparation process. It's always good to go into these things with a plan, exactly like with data visualization. With data visualization, you've got a request and you've got a data set, and you kind of know, what questions are we trying to answer, and based on those questions, you decide on chart types that you're going to use, you decide on functionality that the dashboard needs to have, and then you probably create a wireframe, a prototype of some sort that you take to your stakeholders and say, is this kind of how we want this to look, before you spend all of that time developing the dashboard. It's the same with data preparation. If you know, here's the analysis that I'm trying to do, I know what my end result, my ideal table structure needs to look like, the level of detail it needs to be at, the kind of pre-aggregation that needs to happen. So, how do I plan that out? How many data sources do I have? And then what is that ideal structure? What are the column names? How many columns are there? What are the data types? And so you map that all out and basically create a wireframe for your end result table. And so once you have that in mind, then you want to make sure that your flow is as performant as possible. So everything that you do, right? Every calculation, every filter, think of it like almost like if you had a series of water pipes, right? And your input step, it's just a huge water pipe. And as you start going through your ETL process, filtering things down, really consolidating, the pipes become smaller and smaller to where you're really only outputting, the output of that stream is only what's needed, right? For that specific location, right? So if I know in my input step, there are things here that are in my input that I don't need, there's no reason to carry those things through to the end, because I don't need them at the end, and I'm going to cut them off before they go out anyways. So the earlier in your flow that you identify things that can be filtered out, calculations that can be done, that all helps the processing time. So just think about that. Even as you're building it out, let's say you work through your flow, you've built it all out, but then you see there's a calculation that I did in the last step that could actually be done in the first step. Then you can start moving those calculations, pushing them upstream, and really optimizing your flow So that way each step is only doing just exactly the amount of work it needs to do. It's not doing anything extra. And that processing time of the data flowing through and calculating is efficient. That's also going to help you in your development process as well, because each time you add a new step here, so the data in my input step, when I pulled it in, Prep cached that data. So it's got saved a little sample of that data so that it can quickly reference that data set. Now, when I add in a new step here, any changes that I make in this step, it's going to have to essentially recache the data. So let's say I came in here and excluded a value here. So I removed a value, I've got a filter, I've got a change happening here. So now in this step, Prep has taken a new cache of the data, one that excludes that. And so that's just something to keep in mind as you move through. The more work that you put on it throughout, it's just going to increase your build time and make it a little bit less efficient through your build time if you're not being careful, or like I said, if you're not doing them upstream where they should be done. So again, that's input step. Very important. There's a lot of things that can be done here. Like I said, I could click this filter values here, and I could even filter values right here at the start using a calculation. I could, if I wanted to, let's say I've got all of these fields here. Maybe I'm not going to need file paths, right? When you do a union, there's a field that's created that's called file paths. So you can see down here, this is file paths field. I'm not going to need this in my analysis, so I'm just going to uncheck this box. I don't need it. So already that's filtered out right here at the start. You can see there is this little icon here. So this is kind of what I was talking about, those visual indicators. Real quick, I can tell something happened in this step, and that's the icon for excluding a column. And then same with that down here, I can see that little icon. So let's go to the clean step. Another foundational step, very important here. And I'm going to try to speed up a little bit to make sure I cover things with the little bit over 15 minutes we've got. Clean step is very important. Most of your transformations, cleansing, filtering, calculations, all of that's going to happen here in the clean step. And the good thing about it is there's a lot of things like common cleansing practices that if you're trying to do them in desktop, you've got to know regular expressions. You've got to know how to truncate values. You've got to know really how to make use of string calculations like right, left, mid, find. You've got to know your ins and outs for all of these calculations to do kind of simple things. And so what Prep does is that they've taken into consideration a lot of these very common things and really put them right at your fingertips. Again, self-service data cleansing. So let's say, for example, let me see if I can find a good one. I have, actually, I believe there's one of these tables. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, perfect. So in the orders east table, there is this value here for sales. So if I look at sales over here, it's got USD in front. So all of the sales values have USD in front. So ideally, sales would be a numerical column, but I've got these letters in front of it. And so I want to remove all of these letters, right? I don't want letters in here that should just be numerical values. And so there's this little more options here, right? This more options here, the little drop down. When I click that, there's a couple options. There's filters. So there's calculations, calculated filters. I can do filters by selected values. I can do a wildcard filter. I can filter on null values. There's cleaning options. So I can do make uppercase, lowercase. I can remove letters, remove numbers, remove punctuation, trim spaces, extra spaces, or remove all spaces. So here, some of these cleaning options that it puts in here by default, it's simple. I dropped in my data source, I added a step, and I can click what I want to do. I don't have to write a calculation. I can click it. So here I could say remove letters. And then you can see now in my sales column, I've got no more letters. It's just numbers. And then what I could do here is change that type to a decimal number. And so again, quick, easy, clean. That's the power of Tableau Prep. If I come over here to the left side, over here, you'll see if I apply any changes, I've got this little sort of collapsible section. And this will show me all the changes that I've applied in this specific step. Again, there's icons here. So there's this switching letter. There's this icon here. And at the step, those icons are there too. So quick visual cues, there's changes here. There's changes. These are the actual changes. So if I wanted to see and learn, right, like I removed the letters through that drop down, that's fine. But what if I was just curious? I want to learn how I would do that just in general. If I go in here and edit that change, it shows me the calculation. So those fixed menu options that Tableau has, those drop down cleaning options, they're just stored calculations that Prep then goes and applies. And then you can sort of reverse engineer. And so all that happened in that step was Tableau Prep did a regular expression replace. And so it basically said in the sales column, find any alphabetical values, replace them with a blank. That's all that happened. And so you can kind of start reverse engineering and increasing your skills on both sides, your data preparation skills. And then if you wanted to learn more about regular expressions, or just string expressions in general, you could jump in and look at what those calculations are. Kind of the same way you would with table calculations in desktop. When you apply a table calculation, it creates it for you, but then you have the ability to go in, edit it, and see what the actual calculation is. Let's see. We've got a lot of things that are happening up here, right? You can see we've got automatic split, custom split, here, automatic split, custom split. There you can rename fields, you can create a calculated field, duplicate. You can say, I want to keep only this set of fields. You can even hide fields so they'll still be part of your prep flow. You're just kind of hiding them from the view. Just maybe if you've got, let's say you've got a data set with, I don't know, 100 columns and you need those columns, but you only need to transform 10 of them, then you can hide the rest as you work through, and in your output, those fields will still be there. So another quick couple of options here that I'll cover. Let me see if this one has it. State. No. Hold on. So let's wait for this to load a little bit. Here. And Central, where are you? Okay. So another quick couple of things make it really easy to do certain things. Let's say for whatever reason, there is a value in here that I've identified, and I know it is incorrect. It's always going to be incorrect. I always need to change it. Let me see. Let's say, for example, here, right? It says none in my discounts. Well, I can see the rest of my discount values are numerical. And so having a discount value up there of none doesn't really make sense. So I could fix this in two ways. I could either come in here and change this to a number, right? And that's going to change that value from none to null. But maybe I don't want any null values. Maybe I want, instead of a null, I just want a 0 discount. And so what I could actually do is I can double click this value here and change it. And so now I've changed that value. So now anytime there is a null in my data set, either now or as more data gets ingested in the future, it's going to show as a 0 instead of null. But you can see here that there's just this little paperclip And that's the same icon that Tableau Desktop uses for grouping. You can also see over here that it didn't say that I replaced the value. It didn't say that I edited the value. It says that I grouped the value. And so if I come here and edit, now it pulls up this grouped values. And so that's all that happened. I didn't technically change the value. I'm not changing null values to something else. I'm saying anytime a null value appears, group that into a new value of 0. And so if I wanted to, you can see here when I click on a value, there's these boxes that pop up here, right? And so this is grouping. So you can do manual grouping. You can do, the same way that you would in desktop. There's grouping options, and even if I click the drop down here, you can see there's group values. We've got manual selection, and then you can see down here there's some other grouped values, right? There's pronunciation, common characters, and spelling. So let me see. Let me find this table over here. Let's see, is this the right one? Okay, yes. So we can showcase two things here. We can showcase the grouped values and the splitting. So if I go to the notes section over here, or the notes column over here, there is, you can see there's like a note of some kind. See a note, a little hyphen, and then a name. And that looks to be kind of consistent across all of these. There's a note, a hyphen, and a name. Same over here. So I've got one column. I need to split it into two. I want one column that has notes. I want one column that has names. And so I could either do an automatic split. So if I come up here and I click automatic split, then you can see it's going to give me two columns, right? So I didn't even have to identify anything. Prep went through, looked at these columns and said, there seems to be a pattern of this hyphen. So we're just going to select that as our separator and create two columns from that separator. And so again, you can even see here on the left side, if I wanted to look at that calculation, it's just a trim calculation. So it's a trim and a split. So basically it's saying split the notes field based on the hyphen. And here, let me come into that. So split the notes field based on the hyphen and give me the first. So the first split, right? So that would be the one on the left. So split that. And then what the trim does is it removes any spaces that are leading or trailing. So as we saw here, over here in the original notes field, there is this space. So it's the note, the space, and then the hyphen. And so when Prep does that split, it's giving us just the left-hand side of this, but then removing that little space here in between with the trim function, just to give you, to make sure that it's nice and clean as it pulls through. So that's one way, right? Automatic split. The other way I could do that is by actually going in and defining it. So if I go and do custom split, it's going to say, ask me what I want my separator to be. And so I can say, I want to use that hyphen. And then it's going to say, do I want the first field? Do I want the last field? Or do I want all fields? And so, there might be some columns that you have where there's that same character appears multiple times throughout, but maybe I just want the first. I want to split based off of that first appearance. I don't want anything else. I just want that first section of strings or combination of characters that comes before the first one. So this allows you to kind of play with it, identify what I want. But in this case, I want all fields. So I split it, and again, I get both fields. So that was splitting, right? But here, I've got now a column of names, and it looks like there are names here that are similar, but there's misspellings, there's mispunctuations. Like if you're using any type of manual entry data, you'll come across this a lot. And so there's values here that should be the same, but because there's like a character difference, capitalization difference, they're not considered the same in the data set. So what I could do here is just come to the a little drop down of more options, go to group values, and then this is where some of these other selections play really well. So you can see there's three. There's pronunciation, common characters, and spelling. So let's do spelling. So I clicked spelling, and then you can see there's this slider with a minus and a plus. So Prep has it's this algorithm that's going on in the background, and I can sort of set the strength of that. How much more or less do I want it to group and look at similar spelling between different values. And so if I come in here and I click See Arnold, you can see that it grouped all of these. There's 5 different values that were grouped into this one value. And I can confirm here that that was the correct grouping. So it doesn't look like I need to adjust the strength of that grouping. And so that, again, really nice and easy. I could have gone in and manually clicked those, but they've also provided some very quick options to go in and do that for us. If I made this stronger, that might start grouping values that don't need to be grouped. So I made it a little bit stronger, and when I came down here, it saw the R, that was correct, but then it grouped these 2 last names that don't need to be grouped. Maybe that's because C and D are close together in the alphabet. But finding that right adjustment and making sure it's only giving you the values that you need in those groupings. And as I said, as more data gets ingested, you can kind of come in here and validate that it's doing what you want. But that will really help solve some of those manual data problems. So I know we're running up on time here, and we haven't covered much yet. But again, we want to help you get the most of Tableau Prep, and there is a lot that Tableau Prep can do. So we want to make sure that we really show you and help you understand what all can Tableau Prep do. So on Friday, we will talk about aggregation and how to understand the aggregation step, because even though it's one step and it's just aggregation, there's a little bit more to it. We'll talk about data densification, data scaffolds, and we'll also go into more details on pivots, joins, unions, things like that. When we get to the hands-on sessions, we're going to be working how we would use it, and we're going to get to see how all of those things. Like I said, I know we're getting in the weeds here, but that's the point in how you would use it. So yeah, that is our time so for today. Again, real quick, just to kind of touch on for the hands-on sessions, what we're going to be using Prep and Data. So if you haven't heard of or used Prep and Data yet, it is a challenge built first primarily for Tableau Prep, but you can use other tools. And the whole purpose of it is you've got data sets and scenarios, and run it through Tableau Prep to first try by yourself to figure out if you can clean the data and get the desired output. But then they post solutions to help you understand and here's the solution for the data, but also why this is the solution for it. So this is a good resource to practice. Like I said, we're going to be using it in some of the hands-on sessions, but you can kind of jump in, and there are some good introductory challenges, especially the ones going on right now. So starting with week 27, right here, it's a new challenge to help new users get familiar with Prep. So perfect time to jump in, kind of work along with it as you're learning through these sessions. Again, Prep and Data, great resource. Another thing, there is also, I have my YouTube channel where I go through just different use cases. So there's some use cases down here for running totals, snapshots, new features. So as new things come out, I release videos that go more in detail on how to use those things. There are templates here for different types of Viz styles, or just out of the box or not out of the box vizzes like Sankey's, sigmoids, things like that. So this is another resource. And then also there is the Prep and Data book, or Carl's Prep Up and Running book. So that's also a good resource, especially if prep is going to be something that you use every day in your organization, and that's why you're here to learn it. So with that, keep up with us. If you need help with anything, feel free to put a message in the LinkedIn channel. Feel free to message me directly. I'm typically pretty fast about getting back to people, especially if it's like help on a specific problem. So, we're here for you. We're here to help you grow with Tableau Prep. And any feedback you have for us on how we can help you better get the content and the learning that you're hoping to get, please share with us.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Jared, for the session. And I think as Jared said that, let us know any feedback you have. We'll go ahead and work on it. I have already gone ahead and shared the schedule of the session on our YouTube channel. Let me just post the link again. So as a next step, just go ahead and join this challenge, join this particular group, and you will be top on all the sessions which we have upcoming. In terms of the next session, which is on Friday, so you will go ahead and receive the invite today itself. And for the next challenge, we'll go ahead and send the invite on Thursday. So we'll go ahead and make sure you get all the invites. We have already set up reminder for you. So you should not be able to miss all these sessions here. So I think with that, thanks a lot, everyone, for joining the kickoff call. We are excited for this program, and we hope to see with you as well. And we will go ahead and talk to you on Friday. So with that, thanks a lot. Take care and be safe.
Thank you.